you're not familiar with the insurance claims process, it's always good to get a contractor involved that is familiar with the process, because there are a lot of ins and outs that you need to kind of know in order to really give you the best chance to get claims approved and really to maximize those claims and the amount of money that you can get from them. Having a contractor that can go in, know what they're looking at, and then also be able to work with the insurance company to maximize that claim, that's what can really start to, again, take a deal from a okay deal. Now insurance proceeds are involved. Now it's becoming a better deal. Well, now we maximize a claim. We call it supplementing, where you go in and you try to get additional monies or things approved, where you go in and supplement, and now all of a sudden it becomes a home run type deal. So,
all right, buddy, here we are.
What's up, bud?
We have made it to recording. Here we are, your backyard, Scottsdale, Arizona.
Yeah, beautiful day out.
Yeah, it is. 80 degrees, kiss of a breeze. Might go swimming here in a little bit.
Kissy, kissy.
Maybe we stop this episode. Things are getting weird off the bat.
Yeah,
huh?
that's what happens though, buddy.
Yeah, I guess so. Well, today, let's chat about sexy insurance claims.
Yeah.
What's sexier than an insurance claim?
Nothing really.
Yeah.
It's free money, kind of.
Yeah.
Especially if it's an insurance claim when you're buying a property and it's the seller's making the claim and potentially paying the deductible, and free money for you, which we'll dive into a lot more in this episode. We've bought quite a few deals, packages with insurance claim proceeds that have turned out to be really game changers, man. It's taken some deals from not being a deal at all, get insurance claims involved, and turn that thing into a home run. So it's can be super, super beneficial for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe we'll start with the insurance claim, the process itself. What does that look like? And what do you typically see those insurance claims on, specifically when you're kind of closing on a property?
Yeah, so with us buying a lot of properties in the Midwest, you have storms that roll through all the time. So the biggest claims, or the most prevalent, are going to be hail and wind claims. A lot of that stuff too is not really noticeable from, unless it's obvious damage from hail where it's breaking out windows or busting out siding, things like that, and or wind that's tore off shingles, things like that. Majority of the time though, a lot of the damage you can't really see from the ground, like especially when it comes to roof damage, when it comes to hail and wind on the roof. So it's one of those things that not until you really get up there and look at the roof and do some little tests up there can you really see if there's hail or wind. But really, again, Midwest and Southeast even of the United States anymore, the amount of storms, the hail and windstorms that come through, more than likely, oftentimes you'll find damages on these properties unless the roof has been recently replaced or whatnot. A valuable tool is there's a lot of what they call hail maps or storm maps that you can buy online that will show you when certain hail events came. You can even put in the size of hail. So, because certain size hail won't necessarily cause damage. So you can narrow it down and say, hey, I only want to see what storms produced inch or larger hail, inch and a half larger hail, things like that. Oftentimes when we're pursuing properties, that's one of the first things that we'll bring up is, have any recent insurance claims been filed on this property? And then if not, we'll start to make those a part of the negotiations in regards to getting the seller to potentially file a claim on the property to see if we can get some insurance proceeds involved.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And oftentimes it's no money out of pocket to them, other than maybe some later on down the road of adjusting their insurance.
Yeah, that's a
follow on. But as far as, actually updating the roof, hey, if I need a new roof or whatever the case may be, if you can file an insurance claim and have them cover it, it's not them sinking $50K, $100K, whatever it is on some of those bigger properties, for instance.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a chunk of money too. And yeah, like you said, it makes it a win-win to where we could potentially get some insurance proceeds, which will kind of break down different scenarios here in a little bit. But we can either get some of that rehab money to do the repairs, or if for some reason that transaction doesn't work out, the seller's still in a position where he's gotten insurance money. Now he can replace the roof, siding, or whatever it was that was damaged, and in return add value to his property and make it more sellable in the future if he decides to sell it again in the future.
Sure. Yeah. So how does that claim process work? we have here our resident expert of insurance claims.
So nice of you, bud.
Hey, you know, we got our expert here.
It's a compliment.
Yes, hey, you got it. There aren't going to be many of those. So
I know.
take it when you can.
Oh, absolutely, bro.
But maybe your background, right? So you own also a roofing company, so you deal day in, day out during those summer months, in particular during hail months, of insurance claims, dealing with insurance companies. So walk us through that process a little bit.
Yeah, so basically first step is to file an insurance claim with the insurance company. That's one thing that the seller has to do that you can't do on the seller's behalf. They've got to file the claim, and then once you file that claim, the next step is the adjuster will come out to the property on behalf of the insurance company. They'll come out to the property and they'll assess damage. And then from there, they'll write up a scope of work. And that scope of work will then break down the damage that they saw, what they're willing to pay for, things like that. So in theory, it sounds really easy, but just like anything insurance related, they easily take your money in premiums, but when it comes time for them to pay out, surprisingly, they don't want to pay out very often, or if they do, they're putting up a fight. So if you're not familiar with the insurance claims process, it's always good to get a contractor involved that is familiar with the process, because there are a lot of ins and outs that you need to kind of know in order to really give you the best chance to get claims approved and really to maximize those claims and the amount of money that you can get from them. So oftentimes, once the adjuster goes out, scope of work gets sent back to the owner. That's when us as a roofing contractor per se will really start to look at that scope of work. And again, more times than not, there's stuff that the adjuster missed, didn't put on there, or there's things that they're underpaying for. There can be a lot of issues with that initial approval, insurance approval. So a lot of homeowners don't realize that when you get that initial, we call it all sorts of things, approval letter, scope of work, insurance paperwork. A lot of homeowners don't realize that when you get that, that's not the end all be all. It's something that can be negotiated, and oftentimes really should be negotiated. There's quite a few insurance companies out there that are notorious for doing shady stuff, underpaying, not paying, just doing stupid shit, to be honest. So having a contractor that can go in, know what they're looking at, and then also be able to work with the insurance company to maximize that claim, that's what can really start to, again, take a deal from a okay deal. Now insurance proceeds are involved. Now it's becoming a better deal. Well, now we maximize a claim. We call it supplementing, where you go in and you try to get additional monies or things approved, where you go in and supplement, and now all of a sudden it becomes a home run type deal. So that process can take anywhere from a week to 2 weeks, depending on how complex the claim is or the building you're buying, whatever it is. But usually within, let's say, 30 days or so, you should be at that point where you got the paperwork back from the insurance company, and now you're starting to negotiate on it a little bit and opening up the dialogue with the seller on some different scenarios on how those insurance proceeds could come into play during the transaction.
Sure. And a lot of that also comes down to education to the seller of,
absolutely.
Hey, can you file an insurance claim? A lot of times we've seen pushback of, no, I don't want to file an insurance claim.
Yeah.
And then it's sort of, okay, well, you can file one. It's not impacting you. The monies would then be transferred essentially over to us. The insurance claim would be transferred over to us.
Yeah.
And then it's sort of more open to that discussion at that point. And, I don't want to replace the roof, but I'll file an insurance claim, for instance, something along those lines, and we can help them through that process.
Yeah. Educating the homeowner, like you said, that's a big thing. We've run into some in the past that, for some reason, say, I don't want to file a claim because I don't want to not bother my insurance company. I don't need that money from the insurance company. It's like, you're paying premiums all these years for this exact thing. Yeah, you're going to be selling the property. For you filing that one claim, that doesn't affect your rates at all. In fact, it's illegal for an insurance company to raise your rates based off one claim. Insurance companies can definitely raise rates and or drop you based off multiple claims and or in the general area if that insurance company is experiencing a lot of losses, a lot of claims, and they can raise rates on the entire area. But that's a common misconception that homeowners have is, hey, I don't want to file a claim because my rates automatically will raise, which again, that doesn't happen. But they are raising rates quite a bit lately just due to the amount of losses and storms and and what that had been passing through. It's been a huge storm, especially like down in the southeast, some of the hurricanes and stuff that have come, just $2, $3, $4, $5 billion events that insurance companies are scrambling to figure out and pay for, and in return raising rates on across the board on everybody, really.
Yeah, somehow that money has to come from somewhere.
Yeah.
If they didn't have the coverage.
Yeah, even though they've been making billions and billions and billions of dollars for the last umpteen years, you know.
Exactly. So maybe we'll kind of jump into some of the examples that we've seen successes with the properties themselves that we've been acquiring and utilizing this sort of tactic, let's say, to be able to bring some extra cash in, make the deal sexier, or even make the deal make sense in some of the cases, right?
Absolutely.
So maybe we can start with, yours that you had talked about, a 35 property portfolio.
Yeah. Handful of years ago, bought a portfolio of 35 single family houses. It was shortly after a big storm came through, and this is in Omaha, shortly after a big storm came through. So we opened up the idea with the seller. Seller was down to file claims on all the properties. Out of the 35, there was roughly, I believe, 20 some that got approved for some sort of insurance proceeds. It was a big hailstorm that came through, so there's a lot of damage to roofs, some damage to siding, things like that. So he filed the claim. The initial payout from insurance was right around $100,000. And from there, we were able, again, the initial payout can always be negotiated for the most part, majority of the time. During the course of us working with the insurance company and supplementing for additional stuff they missed, additional damages, things like that, we were able to get that claim up to $175,000. So that ended up replacing quite a few roofs for us. We did take some of those proceeds, put it on to work on the inside of the property to do some rehab on the inside, which is one thing too to understand, is that when you get insurance proceeds, they'll typically, each policy is kind of structured a little bit different, but in general, majority of them are, you get a certain amount of proceeds up front, and then you can do whatever you want with the proceeds. You can go buy a new car with those proceeds if you want, and it's totally legal. Insurance companies would prefer, obviously, you're putting that money back into the property, and especially with your mortgage company too, because oftentimes when they send out insurance proceeds, they'll put a mortgage company on the check because the mortgage company has the lien on the property, so they have a beneficial interest that you get the repairs fixed. But so they'll give you usually monies up front, and then if you decide to do the work, that's when they'll release a second set of money. You do the work, you send in an invoice saying, hey, here's the work done. Sometimes you have to send in further documentation, and then they'll release the second portion of that money. So again, that first check, the first monies you receive, you can just elect to do the exterior stuff that was approved, or like we did, we decided some of the roofs weren't too bad. We thought they had another 5, 10, 15 years in them. So we decided to take some of those monies and put those on the inside of the property, which was a huge help, because at the end of the day, seller got his price. He didn't have to come out of pocket anything for the insurance monies. We got quite a bit of insurance monies, and he agreed that there was a lot of roofs that were older on his housing. So he was down to file it. So it's a win-win. Nothing out of his pocket, money for us to do a lot of the work. And that kind of goes into different scenarios of how to work those insurance proceeds into a transaction. So
Sure.
one, you can have the seller, let's just make numbers really easy. Let's say you have a property under contract for $100,000. Seller files an insurance claim. Insurance comes out there. They say, hey, we'll pay $10,000 to replace this roof. So now you have $10,000 in insurance proceeds. So depending on if the roof is badly damaged and maybe it doesn't need to be replaced right away. So it could be a scenario to where you have this $100,000 purchase price. Now you can lower it to $90,000 because the seller got the $10,000 in proceeds. So the seller's still netting the same amount of money, but yet you're getting the property for cheaper.
Yeah. And you can put that money to cash to close. So if you wanted to not have as much cash to close on the property, that's a significant impact.
That's a big one, yeah.
Huge one, right? You could put it toward other upgrades. You could do kind of a wide range of different activities with that, or you could obviously replace the roof and now your property value has increased.
Yeah, you can definitely get creative when it's involved. So yeah, that was real estate wise, that was one of the first ones where we involved insurance proceeds in the deal. And it was really eye opening how powerful it was, because again, unless items like the roof was recently replaced, a very good chunk of the time, it's going to have some sort of damage. If that's enough damage for insurance to approve it, I'm talking about roofs, who knows? But there's going into a lot of deals. It's like, okay, now when we're looking at deals, we need to bring up insurance proceeds 9 out of 10 times, really.
Yeah.
Which is what we did.
Yeah, that's what
what we did on the Fort Madison apartments that we have in Iowa.
Yep. Yeah.
If you want to on that.
Yeah, that one. So Fort Madison, Iowa, bought a 48-unit apartment complex. We talked about that in a couple other episodes. But one of the negotiation areas or maybe tactics from our side was to fly a drone over the roofs, realize that, hey, there was some level of damage. It wasn't significant. There's not leaks or anything like that, but we asked that the seller file an insurance claim. And what came back was $70,000 to go out and replace all of the roofs. So from that game changer for us.
Yeah.
You also own a roofing company, so we'll do it at cost.
Yeah.
So there's an aggregate there between what it will cost us and what the insurance company is paying us. Now we going to have a new roof. We have extra monies that we can go utilize and have utilized to go update the property interiors, some exterior work as well. And that $70,000 wasn't, again, out of the seller's pocket. He just filed an insurance claim that he's been paying these premiums over the years. But he filed the insurance claim, signed that over to us, and now $70,000 windfall in our favor.
Yeah, and it happened to be something that we were going to probably do at some point anyways, was replace that roof. Because like you said, it wasn't leaking, but the roof was probably 15 years old or so. Install was terrible, had some wind damage, so there's shingles missing, things like that. So going into it, when we're coming up with our scope of work for that property, the roof replacement was something that was on the list. So now all of a sudden, like you said, we have that 100% covered, and $70,000 is a chunk of money that we don't have to come out of pocket for.
Absolutely. And now property gets a new roof, appraised value is much higher.
Yeah.
Just all of this becomes the money back into the property that increases the value of the overall property significantly. And so it's just that overall snowball effect of an increased property value that we can go out and sell and make more money off of. So it is a significant strategy when you're negotiating with sellers and closing on deals.
Yeah.
That a lot of people just don't recognize or understand the impact of.
No, yeah. It's something that should be a lot more info out there for investors to really grasp about insurance proceeds, because like we talked about, man, it's been a game changer for sure on some deals.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool, bud.
I think that's it, brother.
Nice, man. You did good. Kind of, sort of.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate your comments.
Sweet.
And compliments.
That was uncomplimented.